So today's project is to replace the broken joystick on my PSP with a replacement joystick that I bought off the internet. The particular kit that I purchased also came with a screwdriver with a magnetic tip. As with all home projects, it's important that you keep an appropriate tasty beverage on hand before you properly start. You never know how long one of these projects will last, and you wouldn't want to die of thirst. The first step is to remove the battery cover from the back. Some form of electronics guru would probably tell you that if you did not remove the battery, you'd run the risk of shorting out some circuits. The real reason in this case is that there are 3 screws behind the battery. 2 are obvious. The third is hidden underneath a warranty seal. Seeing as how this is a PSP, and I don't think they even make them anymore, it doesn't hurt to void the warranty. That said, proceed at your own risk. I recommend placing the battery cover upside down. It has a curvature which works nicely to receive and hold the batteries while you're working. There's no need to actually peel the entire warranty sticker off. If you just peel it back about 1/4 of an inch, the screw will be revealed and you'll be able to remove it. Removing the sneaky Smeagol screw from behind the warranty seal is probably the most difficult task in this particular project. I found that several of the screws stuck really tight, and so you had to really turn quite hard. After removing them, I found that they had Loctite glue. There is one screw that's on the bottom frame of the PSP. If you're not accustomed to rigorous tasks, such as the task at hand, now would be a good time to replenish yourself with that tasty beverage I recommended. The last 2 screws, holding the frame and the outer components together, are located on the back. They have deep wells, and it'll take you a moment to pull the screws out. A magnetic screwdriver will definitely help this task. Once all of the screws are removed, the cover should snap off with relative ease. At this point, your only focus is really the cover. There are 2 screws that hold the joystick to the cover. Working on this project sort of reminded me of disassembling Nintendo controllers from back in the late 80s, early 90s. The D-pads would always wear out, and they used to actually sell D-pad things down at the local store. Once the 2 screws are removed, the joystick should come off quite easily. There is a little plastic washer that it took me a few seconds to figure out whether or not that should stay or it should be removed. The fact of the matter is it should be removed if it stayed in place. As you can see, at this point, I became somewhat confused. The joystick itself has a larger thumb pad diameter than the hole that it fits through. I found that if you pull gently on the thumb tab portion of the joystick, it will pull gently as though it was clipped on. In fact, that's what it is. It is, in fact, clipped on. At that point, the joystick itself, without the thumb tab, will simply clip and clasp into place so you can attach the screws. Before you actually run the screws in, I would put the thumb tab back onto the joystick and ensure that it seems to move naturally. Now for the really exciting part of this video. Wait for it, people. That's right. Putting the whole darn thing back together again. Exciting. Riveting. This is probably going to be the most epic bit of film I've ever made in my life. Back to being serious again. It's probably a good idea to give it a quick blow, or if you have an air duster, blow it out before you put the unit back together again. This is one of the few times you're actually going to have the thing open, so you may as well do it. It'll make a definite solid snapping sound and motion as you put the cover back on. If you're feeling truly anal retentive, you can replace the screws back into the holes from which they were removed in the order in which they were removed. I didn't do that. The screws should be snug, but take care not to over-tighten them or ruin the thread. It may not be important to actually run the screws back in the order in which they were removed, but you'll note that the screws are different lengths, so it is important to note which screw went where as you removed them. The only one that really mattered to me, aside from lengths, which if it's too long will be evident, was the silver screw, which obviously goes in the silver band around the perimeter. You'll notice that I'm using my hand to pinch the PSP frame and faceplate together as I run the screws in. That way the screws aren't doing the work of pulling the unit together, my hand is. The screws are just securing it once they're in place and snug. As with all mechanical jobs, it's a good idea to double check the screws to make sure they're all snug before you actually put any cover plates on. Sort of like double checking the bolts before you close the hood on your car. And now the final step. Turn it on and see if the joystick finally works. Of course, to find out whether or not all that hard work actually paid off, you'll need to test it. In order to test it, you'll have to use an application that actually uses the joystick. And as fate would have it, all of the main applications on the PSP don't actually use the joystick. You'll see at the end of the video that the internet browser does use the joystick. Remember, folks, these are my thoughts, not yours, and they're worth exactly what you paid for them. See? I told you it worked. Now enjoy that beer. Responsibly, of course.